He is rolling.
Interview take one, Alpha Mark.
Dexter was diagnosed on the 27th of July 2020, which was right in the middle of COVID. And we had sent him to school on the Monday.
I kept drinking and just going to the toilet, and everyone was worried about me at school, and I was just feeling terrible. So I went to the office, checked if, can you ring my mum?
The office called at about 10:30 and I went down to pick him up, and we went into the GP and he couldn't get a blood glucose reading out of his glucometers. So we were sent to the emergency room immediately, and within an hour of being there we were told that Dexter had type 1 diabetes. So it was quite a traumatic experience. Everything changed in that instant.
COVID had shut the borders down. We were in Queensland, the hospital was in New South Wales, which made it a little bit more difficult. Probably spending that hour in traffic trying to get back across the border. All these thoughts were going through my head, what just happened, Yeah, this sort of shook me to the bone. You spend your life trying to protect your kids, and we've got this silent thing that you can't see. You don't know what it is. You don't know how it's going to react to him, to us.
It changes your life in an instant.
Instant.
Feels at that time like nothing's ever going to feel the same. Having to stick needles into the son that I worked so hard to get was something I honestly didn't think I could do. And it took a really long time for me to understand what was happening.
The realisation of I'm just about to inject my son sort of really hit home.
Going home with a 7-year-old Dexter with diabetes was a big step back in terms of his independence and our independence. It was a lot like going back to toddlerhood, but it was petrifying. I realised I felt really unprepared because we had come so close to losing him. So it was the first time the three of us had been alone in the world with diabetes.
It's scary. It really was scary. And coming home for that first time and just looking at each other and thinking, what the hell are we in for?
I didn't realise what forever really meant back then. Forever to me was just oh yeah, it's gonna go away soon. I was scared of most things that diabetes bring. And when I went to sleep, I was just scared to sleep. I would stay up for a bit and then just always ask for them to check my blood sugars before I slept, and then went to sleep. And it was sort of terrifying for me.
We were putting him to bed and pretty much sleeping in his bed. Tiny little single bed with Big Daddy and little Dexter in there. And after that, when he was asleep, going into his room and that fear of not knowing what you're walking into.
Dexter wasn't wearing a CGM at the time, so we were still finger testing Dexter.
Some days we were finger pricking probably 15, 20 times a day. And his little fingers were just,
We'd done some research into what insulin is, and in some jurisdictions it's considered a poison.
Yeah.
Understanding that we carry that in our fridge like it's nothing, knowing that if we got it wrong, the circumstances were dire. Really, after a week at home, we thought we were ready to go back to school. I was walking down there every day to give Dexter his injections because Dexter hadn't yet learnt to do that, and the school were unable to do that. About a year after diagnosis, as he got a little bit older, he started to understand what that really meant. And he also started to want to do things like sleepovers, and there was a school camp coming up, and all of the challenges that needles presented meant that we needed to find another way. And so we did a lot of research.
Heard about insulin pumps. As a family, we needed to understand it.
It was important to us that we knew what it meant and what it would offer. A lot of the decision was really up to Dexter. We talked about all the available solutions, and then ultimately we made the decision that we did to go with the MiniMed 780G system. which is what Dexter's still wearing now.
We tried lots of pumps, ended up with the mini-med, and it worked out perfectly.
So the deciding factor for us ultimately was the algorithm.
So it was those highs and lows that we weren't quite nailing with needles, whereas the insulin pump, it took it to another level. So as he was going high, it would drag him back down, which we couldn't do manually, and this pump was doing it for us, and it was quite surprising.
And we haven't really looked back. I think there was that moment where we realised it actually knew what it was doing. The biggest shift for us in moving to the pump was certainly no more needles. It's totally different now. Once a week we're using a cannula to insert into Dexter instead of needles, and it's a very simple one-step solution, and it takes care of it for a whole week now.
It used to really get in the way when you've got a boy that's doing footy training and drum lessons and all the rest of it. But now we do the set, we do the sensor change, over and done within 15 minutes.
Dexter's confidence grew really, really quickly after the pump. And the independence that usually comes to an 8-year-old boy was starting to come to Dexter because of that decision.
If I feel low, I don't have to just rely on my feelings. I can go to my pump and see what my glucose levels is. It just helps quite a lot to act with my diabetes and just help it a lot.
I wasn't required at the school as often, at all actually. And the teachers seemed more comfortable with it. I think that was part of the other thing that it did, was it put it in the background for the teachers as well.
We started getting a little bit, not lazy, but a little bit carefree with our choices, knowing that this pump was doing all the work in the background. It has, I think, made us more at ease. I think that's what it's doing, especially with the closed loop. Talking to the CGM, it's reading his blood sugars all the time. We've got it on our phones, so we know exactly where he is and where he's heading. It's changed our lives.
I feel more in control than I did before. And I guess if we go back to that feeling of diagnosis and feeling like it would never be normal, this is as close to that as we think we can feel living with diabetes. It's changed the perspective. It's not as scary, I suppose. Not as demanding. Yeah, definitely not. We can say yes to a lot of other things that we would have thought twice about. He's done 2 school camps with the pump. He's done many sleepovers in various locations with the pump. It's been life-changing.
It's really, really put it in the background. It's not in your face all the time. It's changed the way we do things.
I think giving this solution to Dexter, offering this system to Dexter, was the right thing to do. It was really quite empowering to know that we'd done as much as we could possibly do, that there was no more to do, and that we could just let this go and let this be. I needed him to understand that he could do this independently, and that the pump has definitely offered that opportunity. No more sticking needles in our son.
No more sleepless nights.
No more sleepless nights.
No more fear.
No more fear, yeah.
No more school interruptions.
No more saying no. No more...
No more saying no to sleepovers.
Yeah. No more missing out on all the fun. No more anxiety about school. No more interruptions to, our work days.
Our life.
Our lives.